pledge, so please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think the first agenda item was the administrators.
Yes. Let me just say to the audience and anyone who is listening with YouTube, this is the second working session tonight. I think it would be good to go back and watch the other session for those that are listening in, where you can see our general first overview of our budget. You can see the PowerPoint, you can see the actual budget discussion and whatever. This is the second working session. One of the things in regards with the administrators that are here tonight, I'd like to just start out with Ed Henry first. Mr. Henry, if you could just come up. I know the board, and you'll be coming back to talk with the board more in regards just about with school safety, the situation. One of the things is including the cameras with the state grant, where that we pay 40%, the state reimburses us 60%. Rob Dyer, Salvatore Lucci, you've also had some preliminary discussion on this and looking at our facilities and why this is very much needed and very justified, because as we had explained before, over 10 or 11 years in regards with the camera system and just updating some things as far as software goes. It's not that there were not some additional cameras that were added, but as far as the software has become archaic and so forth. The reason I've asked Ed Henry to come tonight, he will come back again. Just looking at our facilities and our schools, and our high school is, how might I say, it has a lot of wings, and it had a new addition in 2005. We're currently, the Board of Ed is located in what's called the 68-69 wing. So in 2005, you had a major renovation and a new part added with the science part and so forth and so on, as well as the rotunda in the entrance and a lot of other things. We're so gracious for that type of renovation and extension and building that was done. But if you could just talk to the Board of Ed a little bit about what you plan on doing. I think just looking at the building as a whole, we've talked about the concerns of just coverage with the entire building. Also in trying to move some cameras. I talked to Rob Dyer today. He had told me that we have an option. I asked about 2 cameras and he said, yes, Dr. Compton, that can be done. They can be moved to other locations. We also have a camera that was left at the board office when we were at Bank Street, so we're in the process of locating that as well. So would you talk to him just a few minutes?
I'm gonna stop you for 1 second because I did forget public comment.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna
Yes, you're gonna
circle
do that.
back to that. Anyone from the public like to make a comment? Public comment going twice. Public comment 3 times. Okay. Mr. Henry, thank you.
Good evening. So like Dr. Compton kind of explained, we do have 75 cameras at the high school at this point. There is great coverage with those cameras at the school, but as you know, the students will find every spot where you don't have coverage, and that's where they tend to go and either vape, get together socially. We've had a staged fist fight there with some female students. You could tell that they kind of know the spot where there's no cameras. So there are spots like that. So fortunately, we do have some cameras that we'll try to move around and cover those areas. Do you want me to speak to security guards, possibility of security guards? Do you want to?
I think if you have anything to add, just looking at, just the size of the building, we're not sure exactly. We think camera coverage is a first. and any dead spots with certain areas. I won't go into detail because I don't want students to know where these dead spots are, so that's why I'm not telling you. Also, we have a lot more coverage than what they realized. I think one student one day was amazed with how much camera coverage that I can even see from my office with all 4 schools with a click. Yeah.
So I think that the major, one of the busiest hallways we talked about our areas was the science wing hallway, stairwell. We did find a stairwell camera that is in the back of the building that really isn't being used. There is no student traffic there. So like Dr. Compton said, we can hopefully move those cameras to that location and get some coverage that way.
And the reason for that, when the Board of Ed moved up and making sure with the coverage in the back to also have an extra protection for the school, the fact the board office was up there, that was one of the things that was included in the budget, that there were a few more cameras that were added. And it's basically in a stairwell that just goes to one place, and it's right next to our office, so it can be taken out and utilized.
Right, so we did have a conversation today about trying to get out in the school and being present and letting the students see that we're out there a little bit more. Officer Freelander does a fantastic job within the building. He often does get called to deal with issues to help out guidance, law enforcement issues, and he also teaches at the building also, so sometimes he's actually in class.
And he's also in the cafeteria with almost all of the sessions, with all the lunch groups. So one of the things to just keep in mind is the size of the building and what is needed in regards, if a security guard is needed. That's what he's going to come back with analysis. He will show you, as well as the administration. We'll take a look at what the other schools are doing, how many they have, and what's going on there.
Right, so as far as the valley coverage is, and again, I won't go into too far, but we are one of the only schools that does not have a security guard in the high school in the valley. I talked to a colleague of mine, Jeff Nielsen, who's very active in the Milford school system. He is going to send me some more research that he has done throughout the state, so you can get a good look at what kind of coverage is out there right now, what kind of pay is being paid for that type of coverage, and different options on how to cover it with multiple part-time people or just a few full-time people. So definitely we'll have more information on that when we come back.
So we'll give you a report back on that. Also, First Select Woman Anne-Marie DeGronis is in the audience tonight. First Select Woman, the fact too with the school resource officer that you provide, you pay for from the town for both the middle school and the high school. We appreciate that deeply. And in regards to the high school, we're just trying to just look as a whole analysis of that big building and exactly what can we do to just further to make sure that safety is always our top priority.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are these fixed focus cameras, or do we have the ability to zoom or pan in any way? Or is that something you don't want to discuss?
There are a lot of capabilities within that system to see what you would need to see to either do a criminal investigation or an administrative investigation also.
No. Are they also sound equipped or not?
I'm not sure if any of them are sound equipped. I have not had to use any of them where, or had the opportunity to go in and see if I needed sound. So again, that would be something else I'd have to get back to you on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll give you a further update to really bring closure and let you see exactly. But I think just the fact we have some extra cameras too, and trying to get those moved as well. It's just, it's always good if you've got extra cameras. that really are focused in an area that's not where the students are, then we need to reassign and get the cameras moved, at least 2 of them.
So was your intent to have other administrators come up, or?
Yes, we can let them come up briefly in regards. I'll start with Mrs. Reed first. Would you like to come up? Just come up here where we can hear and see you.
Do you want me to go through the items, or is there any questions?
I think basically just giving an overview of, yeah.
So one of the items on our list is the building substitute, which I think, if there's any questions on that, but that really would just support not only our classrooms, it helps with the culture as well. The building substitute would know the students, would know the curriculum, would know the teachers, so that's just a benefit all around curricular, and also budgetary because we are using coverage in other areas. So that's one of the items that we listed. The other item that we listed was we have a guidance counselor and we have a school psychologist, but really a social worker. That social worker would be needed, especially because of our specialized programs, including our REACH program with our social emotional students. The increase in the students needing support that's more inclusive of wraparound care and clinical services is really become evident that need is there, and hopefully with that certain skill set, you'll be able to really be proactive, but also give family and community supports. The students in that room, as well as the preschool, and overall in the school, would benefit from that because they'd be able to get connections to clinical care, connections to community resources. They also would be able to get things that normally students would have to go outside of our building to get some of the intensive clinical services, but a licensed clinical social worker that's within the school could provide those services. There's so many more students that need supports with DCF supports, with coordinating care, things like that. So a social worker would be able to really address those things without taking away from the guidance counselor who's really serving the whole, or school counselor who's serving the whole community, more at a tier 1.
So how many social workers do you have now?
At the elementary level,
Yeah.
most schools have 0 social workers.
And is there a suggested ratio? I know a lot of,
statewide?
yeah.
Per student, I would have to check on that for you. I know there's a social worker here at middle school, and at the high school there's that, but we don't have it at the elementary level. And I think the need is just become more and more in our community. A social worker can do different things than a school counselor. They're more of clinical services. They also are able to support families with wraparound care, with coordinating care for multiple, a lot of our students have multiple service providers in the community, so social worker can help that. There's also students who are homeless currently in our population, so they can help to support them in those types of areas. They can also have conversations with parents to find out community resources, as well as they can provide specific counseling type services as well, at a different level than the guidance counselor would, which is really a need that we see in the community.
Right now,
yeah.
we have 1 vacant school psych position in the district.
Yes.
Correct.
Currently at CLS, we've not been able to fill that position. One of the things that I would like to recommend moving forward for next year is that these services that a lot of school districts call them all district. So if there's a need based upon exactly with how many students, caseloads, that's the word I'm looking for, with caseloads, whether it's school psychologists, whether it's counselors, whether it's with social workers, because let's talk about Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. Let's talk about if the budget can't go too far out, or whatever we can make the budget work with for what we have. We do have a social worker here who's 5 days, and we have 2 counselors here. Worst case scenario, a social worker could come from the middle school and go one day to the elementary, if absolute need. It's not idealistic, but it has been done in other places. There have been times, looking back and reviewing history, of where counselors, there was even at one time back in 2017-18, that was before Chatfield got two counselors, and that's when CLS got two counselors. That .5 is paid for by Title I. You had plenty of Title I money. You could actually pay for a social worker as long as you don't supplant. And that's how one counselor is being partially funded for, was with .5 Title I. At the high school, you have the two social workers up there. But when I look at middle school and the elementary, I think, gosh, worst case scenario, we could do that as a one day. Because it's mainly needed for the REACH program.
Yeah, that's a program that really, truly would benefit the most from it. We have many students who are part of intensive outpatient therapies, so they have to actually leave our building, go to those things. It also creates a situation where there's transportation needs or sometimes even outplacement needs because we don't have all of the services included. So the licensed clinical social worker could provide some of those services within our system. And then I think there was one other item I was just going to address that came up in the last meeting that I think there were questions about. You want me to continue?
Yes, talk about unified arts being shared and a little bit about literacy.
Okay. So right now, and Mr. Alexander knows more to it, but right now we are sending over a unified arts teacher for a block in the morning. They come back to us at 10 o'clock for our first block. It rotates, so it's a different unified arts teacher and a 4-day rotation. So they are leaving our building, or not coming to our building until 10 o'clock, which does put some difficulty with, especially with some of the enrichment type of things that we'd like to do, or band and chorus and things like that. We are able to make it work in our current schedule, but it is very tight, and it does start to impact some of our classroom teachers' preps because of the transportation, getting back and forth. So it is impacting us in that way, and it is impacting some of the ability for us to do. This year we're only doing 5th grade band because of that impact as well, where in the past we've done band at the lower level. So that has affected us. But I'll let Mr. Wagner to his building. For the LAC, I know there was a question whether it was increasing it or just restoring it. It was just asking to restore it back to a full-time LAC. Right now, the LAC does come over to our building for a little bit less than the second part of the day, and that she really is servicing our L students rather than being able to really truly work with the teachers on the new curriculum, work on the reading programs, because we feel like that's the most needed right now is to work with that L population. We do have a growing L population. Every year, our kindergarten for the past 3 years has increased about 10 to 15%. We are not currently at the level where we are mandated at the 20 students of one language, but we do have Spanish, which is at 16, I believe. So we are growing. We're only losing 4 L students from 5th grade going up to the middle school. Our lower grades do have larger populations, and we're about 46, I believe, off the top of my head, and the notes up. So really restoring that would do 2 things. It would help us to serve our L population because that person could do that. They don't have to have that certification, but that person does at this point. But it also really would impact our teachers, their ability to engage in those professional conversations, professional development in-house. Really, next year, the professional development is going to look different. We have interpreting this year, and we have some built-in professional development, but next year we won't have that same level. So having somebody that the teachers can work with daily, that's going to really talk about the curriculum with them, that can go in and work with them, that can really serve our whole population, that can oversee the SRBI for reading. Mrs. Barton has done a great job, and Mrs. Brash has done a great job as well, but it is impacting our overall ability to really work with the teachers instructionally and also our students.
Okay, so also you have a copy on your handout that's called Building Assessment. The first report was Mr. Connors, and then the second talks about the specific numbers with the bilingual services. We had asked to total all that up, and we're looking now at Bunge's as well. I would like to also talk about with that, about the language arts consultants. This is something that I mentioned last year, and I'm going to bring it up again. I think you have one more point that,
Oh, yeah, I was just seeing
Yeah.
if there's anything else that.
okay. The other thing I would like to mention about a language arts consultants. Let's talk about this and how it works. Because language arts consultants, they're a part of the union. And we have two currently language arts consultants. They're very qualified people, and they're both excellent people. We've had one lady at CLS who's been there very multiple years. Her whole career's been at CLS. Outstanding. Eleanor, the other teacher, and I don't want to get in personnel because I can't do that, but I can tell you as far as ELL services, she did the .5. This is the point I'm making. I've also thought out of the box. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. What happens if we don't get the exact percentage? What can we do? I wanted to do this last year. I wanted them both to be called district level language arts consultant. That means the one at Chatfield can go to Bungie possibly one day a week and really go in and work with professional development and work with literacy and coaching. And that's what you had mentioned, Ms. Bruno. We need to have with the new language arts series. But in a lot of places, they're called district, and they service more than one elementary school. Right now, that one specific language arts consultant is doing a lot of teaching with kids. It's not always done. That doesn't have to be done that way. So I'm just saying, if we can't get everything that we want with going back to two full-time positions, let's do Plan B. Let's make this person both. She's district-wide, not just CLS. The other one could be district-wide. She's actually a .5 at Bungie now. How does this work with seniority? Right now, both of them have seniority in these positions, okay? Down the road in years to come, if there's any retirements, many districts are going to strictly literacy coaches, instructional coaches. In a world of where you have lots of great things, Seymour's been so blessed to have language arts consultants. In the past, one of these positions actually was at the middle school. You had one at the middle school, then you had one at Bungie, and you had one at CLS. Guess what? Before I came, that was made by a former recommendation by the associate superintendent and superintendent. That position was eliminated here at the middle school, and one of the people was transferred to Bungie. So I'm just letting you see a little bit of the history, because I've studied. I went back. What are the cuts of history in Seymour Public Schools? And one of the reasons that there had to be cuts, like Mr. Garfalo, and he said, Dr. Compton, could you put a number on how many positions have been cut over the years? I don't know, probably $3 million. And that's just an estimate off the top of my head. I haven't been here. But as costs of salaries have went up, more positions have been cut. So that's what you're doing. You're dealing with the cost of contracts and the cost of contractual obligations and so forth and so on. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. I think Mrs. Reed has done an excellent job in explaining what the need is. I think definitely with our ELL population, these kids have to have services. I don't care if they're less than 20. We owe this to our children. And when you get in all to the multiple languages, as you know, Mr. Garfalo, you're the foreign language expert. I'm not. I did have a French minor. I hate to tell you that, but that was not my love. Music was my love at that time. But anyhow, in regards with this, we have some work to do to look and think, if Plan A can't work, we can't budget it, what can Plan B be? Okay? And my recommendation would be to take that district, the district language arts consultant, don't have them teaching kids, have them working with our teachers and coaching. That'd be a Plan B. Okay? Okay.
I do, I'm good.
Very good.
So I'm just going by our needs assessment that we have in the agenda. So next is Mr. Leckna from Chatfield.
Okay, let's
Oh,
let Dr. Bull
sure.
go first because he's got a situation with his son's in a music concert. Dr. Bull?
Good evening, everyone. So I think my list is extensive in a sense, but it's also thematically, similar. My first request was the restoration of the Assistant Director of Pupil Services. I provided statistics to show that we are very much underrepresented in special ed administration in this district compared to every other district in the immediate area, as well as within the DERB. My second request is the restoration of our BCBA. It's been stated repeatedly that we need to keep our students and bring our students back to district from therapeutic placements, yet our behavioral supports have been decreasing while the need is going to be increasing, if that's what the direction that we go. The third request is the creation of an alternative education program at Seymour Middle School, largely through reallocating the 1.0 special ed teacher that last year was reduced to a 0.6. The other 0.4 is spent as a social studies teacher. If we restore that position, I believe we can create an entire position for this particular program. And the fourth request was for an alternative education program at the high school. Again, it would be the restoration of one of our special ed teachers to a 1.0. He had been reduced a year or two ago to the 0.6 and 0.4 social studies teacher. And the increase back, the restoration of a full-time social worker. We do have two social workers. One is a 1.0, one's a 0.6. The same argument I would make for the BCPA is the one that I would make for the social worker. If we're going to keep our students with behavioral needs in district and potentially bring kids back, we can't continue to decrease those types of services.
You can find all of his, it's under the needs assessment that's also placed after the schools is Dr. Bull's report and his request. I can address when Mr. O'Rourke gets up in regards about the special ed teacher and looking at a one-person special ed alternative program position there and rearranging staff. We'll talk about that. The situation right now with funding, as far as an assistant director goes, that's another administrative position. It's a lot of money. We've been, we lowered amount of an administrative position. We currently have an inclusion facilitator. So I have some ideas about that down the road. We're currently paying for an inclusion facilitator. But, it's the wish list of things in which there's a plan A, a plan B, and where we're at. In regards with the BCBA situation, we now have 2 people who are certified to do serving as BCBA teacher consultants. One has started, has done a fine job. The other one is also certified. That started to be a big help. It's not totally the answer, but it's become a good plan B on some things. The other situation, I think you said you would like also the need of having a social worker. And we've put together, in regards with their ideas, Dr. Bull's ideas, the high school administration and Mary Sue Feige have also put together an alternative high school proposal. If you'll take a look to just look at that, I think it's a good start. And it's basically using the resources that we currently have. Okay, and that's with the adjustment with resource teachers. So, Mary Sue, would you like to come up with you and Chris, Mr. Freud, just in regards with this program? I think currently where we are, this is the answer. This is the think tank. Dr. Bull had some suggestions. Mr. Freud did looking at resource teachers and how it's just rearranging some things that we possibly could have an alternative type of program to start out with. Start small. So in regards, Mary Sue finished it today.
The vision of both the high school administrators and Dr.
Yeah.
Boyle to have an alternative program and, just putting all their heads together and coming up and brainstorming and saying, how can we make this work in our district with our neediest students there. It was so important, it was critical, it was a lot of key points and things like that. And, Dr. Boyle's mentioned some things, Mr. Furman.
We're the only high school that doesn't have this.
And right now, the 25 students that are out at therapeutic placements, 72% are secondary level. So we have behavioral programming at the elementary school that's helping to keep those numbers down. We have no alternative at the high school. They're either in a general middle school or general high school, or there's a therapeutic placement for them. There's nothing in between for us.
That's something we need to start looking at very closely because we have over 27 kids that are outplaced, two at the cost of almost $500,000. And then when you look at an $8 million special ed budget and what we're dealing with. So I think looking at what we have and trying to be creative. This program is similar to Oxford because they do have basically a lot of your online alternative programs truly use Apex or some other type of computer software program. And then you have the opportunity to start with 4 content areas. Not only special education, but there's also the need sometime for a student who may not fit into the regular high school to have a lot of smaller groups and one-on-one intervention.
It's, again, it's always been there, but especially since COVID, I hate to keep on saying this, but the number of families and students attending school regularly, not attending school regularly students has increased. Our 4-year cohort graduation rate has decreased. We have kids who are disenfranchised with the regular school day. We have students who are perfect for an alternative education program. In fact, we asked about one just today, and all we can say is that Seymour doesn't want one, where all the other schools in the area do, and have for many years. We've been requesting for an alternative education program for over 10 years. It's time.
So,
We've been meeting with Dr. Miller and Dr. Volkanovsky from Oxford, just as a whole team along with Dr. Compton there, and the enthusiasm that they have for an alternative program, and to be able to bring something like that to Seymour here would be an asset for our students and our district.
and it's not worth it for us to send them to Oxford at this time. I'll be very blunt. I have a very good working relationship with Dr. Miller. We team on a lot of things. But right now, their tuition's it's costlier than ours. It's $18,000. So it's just not practical when we have our own type of teachers who can, work together. And it's all about scheduling, and it's looking at the resources, and it's worth a try. It's worked in some other places, and
That's the key is, Mr. Friend's really been looking at the scheduling along with Dr. Boyle and saying, okay, well, we can put the academics here, we can either make this a work program, or we can use it for Apex learning, there's a platform there, online learning, there's a variety of different things we can use. We have the resources as far as a special education teacher available, Dr. Compton, Dr. Boyle has mentioned that, we can utilize when we can utilize his rooms, we have the space there as well. So we're trying to think outside the box and think creatively as we move forward. And also Oxford said that they would be a help to us as we get moved forward and get started with this program.
well, yeah, we've got good teaming, plus
We do.
we also know what works as well.
Yes.
Academically, we know as well as Oxford, but they've been very wonderful in providing their system.
Thanks.
Mr. Keith Orr, could you come up very quickly, because with the one teacher that we've talked about, and for he alluded to an alternative type of program starting with some kids who could be, give the attention here that wouldn't have to be out, sent out.
Sure.
So just talk about that one.
So as far as the middle school piece of this is, we have students like in any other school, any other middle school anywhere, that their needs require more time on the part of the case manager, in this case, the special education teacher. One special education student doesn't equal another special education student because there are a variety of factors that go into the amount of care and resources that they need to help them be successful throughout the course of the school day. When you have students in a school like Seymour Middle School that require a certain level of care, and you're not capable of meeting that level of care, we get to the point where we have discussions about potentially having to outplace a student. And that's something that, by putting a program in place like this, where we can commit a specific resource in terms of a 1.0 FTE special education teacher to a chosen population of students that would benefit from being in a program like this, we believe wholeheartedly that they can be successful at Seymour Middle School without having to be outplaced, which is never a course of action that we want to take. So where this connects to what Dr. Boyle had mentioned is we have a special ed teacher right now at Seymour Middle who's cross-endorsed, teaches social studies as well, and we have X number of special education resources in our building that if we were to take one of these resources and create this program, Seymour Middle School would have needs to fill the teaching FTE that's being lost by putting that person in the social emotional program. So if you read my needs assessment, all 9 pages of it, you'll see the reasons. It explains
Also-
thoroughly, but it's a program that would definitely benefit not only the students within the social emotional program itself, but special education across the entire school.
And I think it's something we need to try and execute. You gotta also understand, last year we cut a teacher at the middle school. When one left, I think he went to New Hampshire, he's a social studies teacher, and with the budget and everything, he said, we're not gonna replace him, we've gotta come, we've gotta be within whatever, so we took social studies, it was creative. I knew this person had 2 certifications in social studies, and they also had special ed, and, it worked, it got us through the year. So we're just looking at numbers. We have increased in numbers at the middle school. You'll see that as well. That's explained that basically you've moved up to about 18 more kids and possibility, hopefully more will register.
We're projected to be 33 more than the number that Seymour Middle ended last year when many of the decisions were put in place to do some of the reductions.
Right.
And 2 years out, we're going to be 50 plus that number. So we're actually going to be experiencing a little bit of growth in this.
All right, I think we probably have some questions. I have one quick one for you. So I see on the staffing cost here, about $115,000. Out of the 20-plus kids that we have outsourced, are we saying we can bring them back to Seymour, or is this for existing students in our schools that we would place into this program?
So largely, I would say it's to keep kids in district that might otherwise be out, so it's more of an opportunity cost. In this particular instance, I do have a middle school student that potentially can be transitioned back. We had a PBT today, coincidentally, we'll be meeting again in the spring to see if next year we could bring that particular student back. This provides us an avenue to transition that student back through, so they don't just go from a therapeutic placement to a general ed setting. But the real intent is to keep numbers down like we had at the elementary level.
Okay, are there any more questions about the special ed here?
So is the priority the alternative program at the middle school or the high school?
Basically, the alternative program at the high school would consider basically around 1 teacher and 2 paras. That's currently with what we have, not adding, currently with what we have. You want to go ahead, Jim?
If the last social studies teacher that retired at Seymour High School was not replaced, was at that point we started using the special education teacher to help us cover our social studies classes. If we take that special education
we've got one or two people, one who's currently, that does another area who wouldn't have to do all music classes, worst case scenario. Let's call it for what it is. They're teaching all music classes and they're great at what they're doing. But they could teach us social studies. They have done introduction to psychology, whatever. And then there's another person as well. It's just looking and scheduling and how it falls and trying to be practical the best we can.
I have more questions about the alternative program.
Because we did add, you need to know, 2 years ago, we did add a computer science teacher to the high school and was paid for with ESSER funds. And that teacher, thank goodness, is still there and was very much needed. But I'm just talking about truly what we have and what we don't have.
So for the therapeutic, so we're calling it an alternative program, we're calling it a social emotional program. Is it a is there a therapeutic component? What is it bringing to the high school that would be superior to, that kids would need, that would be different from kids who need a therapeutic program?
Any program like this, it's more about the development of a community within the program, which means fewer
So
staff.
I'm seeing it as it's sounding to me like a self-contained program, and I need a self-contained classroom. And I need to know what makes it different from that.
Right, so it's all, which part of your question, do you want me to jump to the second part, or do you want me to go back to the first part? I'm sorry.
Do the second part.
So what makes it is self-contained for the academics, which is not dissimilar to what they're doing right now, but they're co-mingled within a basic English, a basic math, a basic science, and a basic social studies class. That's the class that's remedial for kids with significant learning needs and kids with significant behavioral needs. And when you take one set of resources and try to divide it into two so different sets of profiles, it could be done better if not together.
Okay.
So you are putting together a self-contained classroom for the major content areas. They're still in the building where they can go to elective classes. They are still in the building to go to, lunch and other opportunities. We could also use that space for credit recovery because these are students typically not on trajectory to graduate as well. But they are in-house. They're in our
But
building. In our program.
they would be diploma, they wouldn't be kids who you would maybe look at a transition program.
Correct. They
No,
would not
no.
typically are life skills students. That would be a different
Okay.
program altogether.
This would be specifically to help those kids who really need a lot of individualized attention, who basically don't always fit in a regular classroom, and then still give them the therapeutic support and so forth that they need with this. And I think it's a good start in and out mainstream. That's what Oxford has done with one of their programs. Some are totally self-contained, and then some are moved in and out.
Sorry, Felicia, are you done?
Yeah.
So, I'm enjoying this conversation. I think it's great that we're having it, but I'm just struggling to connect to the budget in the sense that we're not talking dollars. We're talking ideas, we're talking plans, we're talking, suggestions, but we're not talking dollars.
We would be with the middle school, because we're going to have to add an additional teacher based upon enrollment at the middle school.
But I'm saying, so for example, the alternative program, I just heard, we said, oh no, we wouldn't have an impact, we'd be using already.
Our resources within the school. We're trying to be creative.
But in the
and think
budget, on
outside.
page 4, it says $115,215.
That was before. That was first recommended because of the need, and we tried now to come back just in case we don't get additional whatever, that this is a way to fund it by thinking out of the box with the teachers and the resources that we have.
And that's what I'm saying, I totally appreciate that. I think this is a great conversation to have once we solidify our budget. But I guess I'm confused as to, today we're here for the upcoming budget, and I guess what is our goal for tonight? In the sense, this is great, and I support the alternative ed program, and I think that's something that should not be eliminated, but, now we're just saying that we possibly, you see where it's kind of confusing here? And
I think it's a little muddy, but
But I'm saying-
one of the things that we put down was the need for an alternative program. We did expand it, that went up to 4.5%. It is in there, it was budgeted for just an approximate amount of one teacher. Now, after brainstorming and looking at numbers, it comes up that the middle school, based upon their increasing in enrollment, because the other schools aren't increasing. I'll show you the enrollment. Chatfield has more as well, but the only schools, actually, the high school is it barely a 600, sometimes 599. So we're just trying to fluctuate with what we have.
So if we did this, there would be no increase to the budget at the high school level, but
Right.
we would
It would be-
assume that 115 if we needed to do it in the middle school?
Yeah, that would be for another teacher that would be needed based upon the increase in enrollment.
Except for the half.
Sorry, through the chair. Go ahead, you can go first.
I'm just not understanding how you do a therapeutic program without a social worker or BCBA and those other supports.
Well, right now, you currently have a social worker, 2 in the building. You currently have a school psychologist, and you currently have counselors. So they would be working, there would still be their kids, it would just be with that particular program.
So I just, through the chair, if I just back up a little bit. Again, I'm having trouble right now because the budget is due to the Board of Finance by February, what's the date that we have to present?
We have to have it actually by January 31st.
January 31st, and so that's like 10 days here. So again, I guess, what is our goal today? I read the minutes from the last meeting, and I know we had conversations, and I think it was like, we paused, and I apologize I couldn't be there. But then today, we were gonna have the needs assessment and have some conversations, and then I see sorry, I guess I missed a step, or was there an update?
You haven't missed a step. We were just creative. I'm going to sit down and let them continue to talk. I think this group is finished. But I just wanted you to understand, you got a plan A, there could be a plan B and a plan C with what we have. And that's basically what was done at Oxford. They took a teacher and they placed them into that program. And then looking at the middle school and looking at the enrollment, and oh my gosh, which wasn't, there was the need for an additional teacher. So in an idealistic world, yeah, you could say, hey, we need another teacher at the high school. We need a program, another teacher at the middle school. She needs a social worker. I mean, I just want you to hear it out. But I'm just trying to say, here's a plan A, here's a plan B.
But, sorry, if I may, and I don't want to monopolize, but I just don't want to muddy the water for
Right.
the taxpayers, because I think if this is so important and we're going to put it in the budget, then we need to say, this is important and there is no alternative.
Okay.
We need the funding to support this for reasons X, Y, and Z. If we're saying that, well, we could do it, I just think that that's confusing. And I
Yeah.
think it
I
gets
understand that,
people nervous, and I just want to be
Well,
quite
we'll just
frank.
cut to the chase and let's just talk exactly what we need. Okay?
Exactly.
So let's do this. Let's
Yeah.
have all of the principals come up and say their piece. And then we have on page 4 what is
Yeah.
included in your proposal.
And what
Then
you
we
need
could
to
look-
add and what you want to take away, okay?
That we could just look at each one of the schools.
Right.
And make a determination. where
Okay,
we wanna
could
go
we
from there.
let Mr. O'Lakener come up now, and then we'll let Mr. O'Rourke? Dr. Bull has a concert with his son he's got to go to.
Hi, everyone. CLS alone can meet its unified arts needs. Mrs. Reed talked a little bit about that. Right now, of the 6 grades that are at CLS, 3 of those grades have 5 classes, 3 of them have 4 classes. We don't know what our incoming kindergarten population will be, whether it's 4 classes or 5. And actually, on the horizon, one of our grades that only has 4 classes is at 87 students. We have had, during my tenure at
the summer. So just in meeting the current needs, the Unified Arts program has required, as Mrs. Reed said, Bungie Unified Arts staff to come over and service one of our fourth grade classes first thing in the morning, which is a stretch on both buildings, and it involves those teachers starting their day at the building that's not their home building and getting over to Bungie. Then, in addition, somewhat intertwined, one of the needs also at CLS, I put in there for multiple years in a row about a social worker, and in fact, the 2.0 school counselors that we have been impacted because one of them is doing 2 Unified Arts classes every day. So we aren't really operating as a 2.0 school counselors because one of the counselors every day is doing the kindergarten Unified Arts counseling class in first grade. In addition, so the impact on the school counseling staff, the additional contractual obligations within the teacher contract for extra planning periods doesn't allow any flexibility whatsoever that if we don't get the Unified Arts position in any shape or form, then, like I said, CLS just can't meet the needs on its own. I did not put in any ideas in the proposal for what we felt would be a good direction to go for Unified Arts teachers, because I didn't want to muddy the waters and going, well, maybe you thought that that wasn't the right Unified Arts teacher versus, if it was, say, a STEM teacher or a world language teacher or whatever it might be. The purpose was really to say, we really need a Unified Arts teacher that we can, but since I have this opportunity in front of you, I will go ahead and share a way to help address a few different issues, better word than issues, at CLS would be for it to be a world language Unified Arts teacher. So for an introductory level, say at the kindergarten, first grade, and in addition, that ideally, if it's a 1.0 position, a teacher that teaches world language, but also could take care of some of the growing multilingual population at CLS for the other half. Because, as already discussed, Bungie Language Arts Consultant is now 0.5 at CLS, working with some of our EL students. We are presently at 67 multilingual students at CLS. 6 are in grade 5, so that would bring us down to 61. We are averaging between 15 and 20 kindergarten multilingual learners every year entering CLS. So although we're at 67, we dropped to 61, we conservatively will be 75 or more starting next year, which is every year continues to be a new CLS record for multilingual learners. So, in a way, although we'd like the social worker, we could get the 2.0 school counselors back. We'd help address the needs of the students with the multilingual needs and solve the UA issue that is also a burden on Bungie School by us having a Unified Arts teacher. So it actually covers a lot of different things, all very much to meet student needs.
I'm going to
student learning.
stop for 1 second. Ms. Harmeling she has the flu. She's having a hard time hearing, so I'm wondering if we could maybe stand closer. Can you hear okay? Okay. I don't know when this came through, but I did tell her she could shoot me a message.
Can we have the speaker?
No, don't start
Can we
over.
mic the speaker?
Yeah, could we mic the speaker maybe? Yeah, that would throw it down.
Oh, I'm sure that will help.
Testing.
Okay, so basically, really what your number one request is a unified Spanish world language.
Yes, that would assist multiple areas actually across the district, in addition to meeting multiple needs at CLS. The additional staffing ones, again, I think I feel already everything Mrs. Reed said, except we don't have the REACH program at CLS, but as I really, I know you can certainly see what I've put in our proposal for why, with our population at CLS, socioeconomic, single parents, we feel that there is a great need to increase that area, but at minimum, getting back to the 2.0 school counselors would be a step in the right direction. And also, happy to, before we ever got to the 2.0 school counselors at CLS, it began by first being a shared position for additional, we were at 1.5, so if there was even a realm where that could be, to grow the position part-time at CLS for a social worker. And then for office staff, we're the second largest school in the district, and we have our office staff just in running the building with attendance and everything else that comes with running a school of our size. Ever since we lost other office staff, we lost 2 adults that were working there when we eliminated the clerical pairs several years back. So they every day are scrambling to make it all work. And if one of them is out, then you have administrators, either Mr. D or myself, we're covering at the desks and doing some of those roles too. And there's lots of things to do at CLS that, that's why I've put that in for multiple years as well.
All right, any questions for Mr. Lekna? Did you have one?
What do you predict will the number of sections you'll need in kindergarten based on the change in the kindergarten enrollment age? The initiative, Mrs. Reed as well.
I was figuring on 4. But talking to some within the district, they don't feel necessarily that the number of students that children in the CLS district would necessarily be that many impacted, that we could still possibly have 5. So that's a lousy answer because I'm telling you it's 4 or 5. If it were to be 5, then I don't know what we're going to do.
This year you have
5.
5,
in
we're
kindergarten.
really looking strongly, definitely there'll be 4, but there could be the possibility of 5. A lot depends upon the population. The population increased 2 years ago. This was the start of the 5 for kindergarten.
We have 84 fifth graders. We have more than that currently in kindergarten. So all we need is we every year seem to get somewhere between upper 80s and 100, last year was 106 kindergartners. So even if we have a dip, from 2 years ago it was 106, if it's still 90.
It'll go back up the next year.
So that's where also, besides the middle school, all we need is 85 kindergartners, and we have a larger population this year than we had next year than we would have this year. So
But the situation being, just looking at the population and where we're at with CLS, Bungie only had, this is the first time that they've down to 3 kindergarten classes, and this was last year, and this was before the change of the age 5 September 1st. Of course, parents can submit the waiver, but I'm just saying, with Bungie's population and entering to kindergarten has went down, I think a lot of that had to do with the sale of homes that were sold in the Chatfield area compared with the amount of homes that were sold in the Bungie area. Right after COVID and when the housing boom was just through the roof.
It would be great to know from the town where the town stands in terms of vacant housing and capacity.
they can give us all that
That
information.
would be
they
helpful
know.
as we present the budget.
Yeah, we can get that. Okay.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Sal, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put this here.
Okay, before you get started, I'd like to make sure that they look at the handouts that include, it's under that same building assessment packet that includes Mr. O'Rourke. He wants to explain what's coming off in his building, and we did validate your numbers to make sure they were right. Not that I don't trust you, but in regards with the enrollment, again, off Pear School, you have an estimated enrollment for 24, 25 of 490, probably 495, because we usually have at least 5, 6 kids up to 10 that could move in during the summer. It usually happens at least 5.
We had 20.
Yeah, it was unbelievable last year. 20 came into the middle school, and again, that's what threw off with the counts and where the big increase to try to ask for another teacher, in which we got another math teacher. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Compton,
All
and
right.
thank you for giving all the principals a chance to actually speak about our budgets and our requests. In my former district, this wasn't the case, so I really do appreciate you giving us the opportunity. Dr. Compton asked all the administrators to create our needs assessment, and this is my first go-around, first time, with this ball game in Seymour, and I apologize, I submitted a 9-page needs assessment. So I'm not, in the sake of honoring your time, I'm not going to go through everything that's in there. I'm going to focus on one item in particular because I think that it is my level one. Everything else that I have on my wish list is there for good reason. It's because I want the best for our students, as I know that everybody here does, but I also recognize that we need to be fiscally responsible, and it's a wish list. So please take that into account when you read through the items that I submitted. With that said, the level one priority that I have, the top priority, is the addition of a 1.0 FTE. Now, in my request, it says social studies because that's the position that would be getting vacated. This is all tied into the social emotional program at Seymour Middle School, which would look slightly different than a high school program. And I only bring that up because you would ask questions about the high school program. It's a different look in the middle school. We have the components to put it in place. Right now, we just have to reallocate the way that we use a special education teacher. We have the social worker piece, we have the BCBA, we have the para support. We just have to reallocate the caseload in the manner in which we would utilize a special ed teacher. Dr. Boyle and I have talked about the special ed piece of this many times since I arrived at Seymour because I was surprised that we didn't have a program like this in place already. Given the state of things post-pandemic and how the migration patterns to Connecticut and the number of people that have been moving into towns in the valley, especially Seymour, there's a high likelihood that students that come into our district that didn't have the benefit of the REACH program, K-5, coming into our school might fit the definition of the types of students that would have benefited from that program. So I think now more than ever, it's important for Seymour Middle to have the program that Dr. Boyle put in his needs assessment, and that's very much connected to the 1.0 FTE that I'm asking for, because the 1.0 FTE that I'm asking for is to fill the space that's being occupied, a big chunk of it anyway, by a special ed teacher who's duly certified. Now, that special ed teacher, whether it's that individual or whether that special ed teacher takes a caseload and one of our other staff members becomes the person spearheading the social emotional position in our building, that creates a need for us to fill a 1.0 FTE. It could be a social studies teacher, but through looking at the certifications that we have within our building, we would have the leverage of identifying staff members who are duly certified and seeing if there's a better fit for the specific specific certification that we would fill the position with. Could be a math teacher, could be a science teacher, but we would have the ability to choose based on current certifications within the Seymour Middle School staff, and we do have several staff members that are duly certified.
And that's a plus. I've studied the certifications inside out. They might not know it, but I pretty much know every teacher and their dual certifications. What's real important when you're raising the rigor at a middle school, the number one issue that we really need to concentrate on is improvement in math. Math scores all the way up, K-12. So when you really look at it, research will tell you, hire another content specialist in math. You've got people that are dual certified that could be moved into the social studies. If you hire another math, you're strengthening again your math content area. Specifically, we just hired a math person, middle school certified, as well as, and then if you could get another highly equipped content specialist in math, because these others have multiple dual certifications. So my recommendation is you get an opportunity that we hire another math to raise the rigor. I'm just going to be honest with you. Don't want to speak out of turn, but, and I think you agree with me.
We're on the same page. Now, speaking to the enrollment piece of this, the enrollment for next year is going to be 33 more students than the number where the school year ended last year. It's set to be, and Dr. Compton said 490. It's predicted at 510 for the following year. The numbers are going up. Without the 1.0 FTE, we're going to be in the same exact position that Seymour Middle was in when I arrived in August. We're going to have class sections that are out of whack. They're not going to be balanced. If you remember when I arrived, and the reason why we had to hire a math teacher is because we had class sections across all content areas.
Well, and then the
ranging
20
from 7
moved
to
in
29.
unexpected.
We
But
had the
let's
students
call it
move
for
in
what
as
it
well.
is. We had 20 come in that had not been accounted for.
So by not having, right now, it's a social studies position, because that's the position that the special ed teacher is covering. Only half of it, though. And I'll get to, you might ask, well, what about the other half? I'll address that in a second. But by not filling that 1.0, you would have 8 sections of language arts, 8 sections of math, 8 sections of science, and then 7 sections of that social studies subject. And being a section short throws everything off kilter when it comes to scheduling, especially when certain students need to be in certain slots based on their instructional needs, their IEPs. So the other half, and I just want to address this to be as transparent as I can, the other half that's filling those social studies positions this year are certified teachers in our building that are teaching off grade level. So a question that you might ask is, well, why can't they cover it next year? We're in the process of revamping our schedule. We're looking to increase instructional content time in the core areas from 135 hours to closer to 150, and we're looking to increase the amount of rigor that we could have our students engage in during a class session. We're looking to move from 46-minute periods to 60-minute periods, so students can actually experience true inquiry-based learning in class. So in doing that and in changing the schedule and looking at some of the models, those teachers might not necessarily, most likely will not be available anymore to be able to teach those classes. So we need a 1.0 FTE, and the numbers itself, I think, support it. But the last thing that I'll say in support of it, going back to the special ed piece, and again, you asked for us to make our case. Anytime you place a student in an outplacement, it costs X amount of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to outplace students. And we're getting students that many of them are coming to us not having been Seymour Public School students. And they're coming to us with needs that, quite honestly, haven't been addressed. And we have students that we're doing the best we can, and we're doing the best that we can with the resources that we have. But at a certain point in time, some of the students that we have in Seymour Middle are going to have to be outplaced. Putting the social emotional program in place will save the taxpayers of Seymour hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is not an absolute. You will have a student from time to time that, despite our best efforts, will have to be outplaced. But having had a program like this in my former district, it will save hundreds of thousands of dollars to the taxpayers over time.
And it did work in your former district.
It did.
It
We
did.
very rarely had to outplay students. Very rarely. Again, it's not 100%, proof of not having to outplace, but there were many students that became success stories because we had the program in place.
Also, moving ahead, that I think is a win-win situation. This is not creating, the next area is going to cover, and we'll get off of it very quickly, because this is about the budget and prioritizing the needs. But one of the situations, just to let you know, on the other handout, is due to a retirement. We've had a fine science teacher who's leaving us after many years of dedication for Seymour Public Schools. This is giving a person an opportunity who's currently the STEM teacher, would like to move into this position. And this is a win-win. 8th grade is accountability with science assessment. So that frees up. We currently have a STEM teacher going on and a computer science, which is also a part of STEM. It needs to be all one unit and call it a STEM, computer science, coding, that whole unit of being one, not two separate ones. Most places don't have two separate.
Right.
They have one STEM innovative program and a teacher. Therefore, by changing what was normally, you will still have the technology, the computer science, and the STEM lab with one teacher. Our suggestion is to bring back a media specialist in that position. It's not creating and not asking for another position. It's already, this position opening already exists. It's just instead of having two, you would have an opportunity to have a media specialist here.
There would be a reallocation of resources, and the media specialist position would be a full-time teaching position. The media specialist would be responsible to teach classes for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. They would cover topics ranging from information literacy to executive functioning
Spelled out.
to the research process, and that's something that we lack right now. By combining STEM, our current course that we refer to as STEM, and computer applications into more of a technology education program that would cover all of the components within those programs. It would just look differently than it does right now. We could get a lot more bang for the buck, and we could answer a need that we have. We have a beautiful media center that goes unused instructionally.
Okay, so I just thought we would just throw that in and let you see that, and that would be, that would involve the board later in regards to bringing back this position and changing.
I think also if we're changing the curriculum, that should go through the curriculum
Absolutely.
subcommittee to
Yeah.
the board. So
Yeah, that'd be the
changing
next step.
UA
Yeah,
course
out of
as
respect.
well as adding a media course. I just had a question. This year, in addition to adding the math teacher, we added an in-school suspension position. Is that returning to the budget? Can we reallocate that and use it in a different way?
I would say, please, no. We use that person every single day. Every single day in the ways that I had petitioned to the board that we would. That person at times is in this media center or in another location in the building covering a class of 2 classes, 30 students in total in this space, and she's the only person in the building that could do it. And when I petitioned for the position, I had said that we'll be able to use this person to help
Whenever
cover
they would be
classes.
doing in school.
It has fulfilled the need of in-school suspension. Fortunately, the kids here are great. The kids here are great, and she's not in the ISS room on a daily basis. But our in-school suspension facilitator is here 3 days a week until 4:30. We started late bus today. That's the person supervising the kids and getting them on the bus. So we're getting a lot of bang for the buck with that position in the different ways that we're utilizing that role. And
So it's sounding more like a building sub
It,
position.
yeah, right,
and
it's being
that's
a
what we
lot,
should
quite a
be
bit of
calling it.
portion of a building sub, and that's what we want. That's on the needs list, it's in the budget to have these permanent building subs.
if you look at my list, it has 3 building subs, and I think you made fun of me at the meeting last week, Dr. Compton. But we need building subs too, trust me. And I know that it's been discussed how much is being spent on building subs with certified staff members taking those roles. I can tell you that I don't feel as if we have an attendance problem in Seymour Middle School with our staff. Our staff comes here happily on a daily basis. but you always have one or two staff members out, and most of the time, we don't have one sub taking the role. So if Sam, that's our ISS person, doesn't have company in ISS, she covers a class. She helps with lunch duty. We have working lunch here on a daily basis for students who are struggling. She proctors those sessions. She's here 3 days a week until now when the bus picks up the kids. And before we had the late bus, Sam was here helping to supervise the library so we could provide the library as an after-school activity for students. That definitely exceeds a little bit what a building sub would do, though I would love to have both.
Also, we did, as he just mentioned, we got it worked out with the bus company to finally get this after-school bus. You remember the parent who came back in October, November, and, you know, he's ready to come back again. How's Dr. Compton doing on this? Well, we finally got it done, so it's good. 3 days a week, it's helping the parents, and I know if the parent's listening tonight, he's very appreciative, but we'll send him a personal email. I know, well, he already knows about it.
Today was the first day we had 10 students.
I know he's happy, not just him, but many other parents. Okay?
All right, thank you. Any more questions? I'm going to call you
Thank you.
Dr. O'Rourke. Mr. O'Rourke.
Well, he wrote a mini dissertation here on his, whatever, on his request.
And I guess last but not least,
Come up here, Mr. Freud. His counterpart, Mr. Lucky, assistant principal, sick today.
So,
Speak up loud, I can't seem to hear.
okay, so of the priorities that I have today, I would like the .5 FTE assistant principal position. I understand it was budgeted for this year, but I'd like it actually to be filled next year. And my proposal would actually have cost savings to the district when considering the fact that my proposal would involve combining that position with the school counseling's quasi-administrative position. Seymour used to have that position existed under Ed Rostowski, who was assistant principal as well as the director of school counseling. Currently, our school counselor, the head of our school counseling department, gets paid for department chair, gets paid as department coordinator, but then she also gets called in for about 30 hours over the summertime for our hourly pay to help us work through student schedule challenges and issues. So my proposal would be to combine the .5 FTE assistant principal position with the leader of our school counseling department so that we could utilize her services throughout the year as well as having her support us, in particular with the discipline of students. She would get the 9th grade students to be responsible for, as well as the evaluation of teachers. If this doesn't happen, if you were to look at all the other schools that exist, that only have, high schools that is, that only have one principal, one assistant principal, then in the majority of those schools, the vast majority of those schools, the teacher evaluations are done by department chairs. By not filling that position, you put a burden on the administration in that building to do an increased evaluation, increased student discipline, and increased participation in 504s and PPP meetings. I can speak for Mr. Lucky because he and I have this conversation often. As far as getting our actual, like the jobs, the meaningful aspect of our job involving teacher evaluation, we've been very challenged to do that. Myself, for example, I was the only administrator building today, and I was called 3 times to the BCBA room because one of the students was acting out. It's hard to do anything relevant to teacher evaluation in this concept with these disruptions in the day. The position is budgeted for already, so it'll just be filling it next year. The other thing that I would like is, of course, the development of the alternative education program that Dr. Boyle mentioned. This is something we've been advocating for many years. I said 10 earlier, but it's probably been closer to 18 years we've been advocating for it. There is a place for it. It does exist in all the high schools in the area, and it has existed in all the high schools in the area. I know for years essential for a population of students that just don't fit into the normal education program. They need supports. We feel for these kids. These kids also often are coming from difficult life experiences, and the general education classroom is not the best setting for them. They're destined to not be successful because we don't provide the things that they need to be successful. We could do so in an alternative education program, which would include social worker support, school counseling support, psychologist support. These things are critical because, let's face it, these kids are going to this alternative education program not because they can't be successful in the general ed setting. They need these support. They need this extra kind of support to get them through. Again, Mr. Lucky has been the advocate for that for years. He's the primary advocate. If he were here, he would be able to share a lot more information with you. I think we also feel that we've noticed an increase in substance abuse amongst our students as well as amongst their families. And we proposed hiring a part-time, 10-hour per week substance abuse counselor, to a support person. It could be from an outside agency to come in and help our programs and support our programs. And mainly our kids, right? It's all about kids. That's why we work. It's provide for our kids, and they need more supports than we could provide, especially in the area of substance abuse. We don't have anyone on staff specifically trained in that area. A while ago, so over the years, the secretarial staff in the high school was reduced from 6 secretaries and 4 clerical paraprofessionals to 3.5 secretaries. And right now, we're getting it done. But one area is we're very struggling, we're strapped, and we're behind the 8 ball, always it seems, is the attendance aspect. And that's a critical aspect. We know poor attendance is up across the state. Well, it's up across the high school. You know, our chronic absenteeism numbers are higher than it's ever been. I need a part-time secretary. It was full-time a year ago. It's part-time now. I need that restored to full-time to help take care of all the attendance duties expected of that office. It's a matter of there any questions?
Oh, go ahead.
This year, we approved teacher stipends to manage tardies and to interact with
Yes.
those students. Are those positions in this
We
budget?
still like to continue those.
But are they in the budget?
They basically, I think Salvatore still has them in. We haven't really brought it back in front to you as a Board of Ed. We wanted to also present data. I think it's very important because 5 of you supported it and 4 of you weren't very happy about it. So I think it's very important that you see this data. What on earth have these attendance officers done? They've actually brought down the amount of tardies. I asked to see the data on it actually last week. So I want to bring it back and share it with you all.
I've seen some of the data preliminarily, and in the cases that I've seen, and you'll get a full presentation, there's been a 66% reduction in tardies to class, which is significant to the whole learning process.
So, through the chairman, go ahead, Ms. Berwick. Do you have any-
Just one more thing. So I think it would be helpful for all of these things that are being presented to see what the offsets are. So if we're looking at an alternative program at the high school, at the middle school, are there potential savings in next year's budget as far as tuition goes? You know, what have you projected for kids that are going to be outplaced? What is in there for Nome or kids that can come back? The other piece is if kids within this program, and are the alternative programs all children, all only IEP children?
No, they're
Okay.
usually a combination
Okay.
of IEP to non-IEP. And honestly, for me, it's not necessarily about preventing a kid from going to an outplacement. It's preventing a kid from, or it's allowing a kid to graduate, right? Because what happens at the high school is once they turn 17, their parents could come in and sign them out. So when kids are struggling like that, they come in, they sign them out, see you later. And that is, I call that a lost child. I always call them that, and it hurts when that happens, and it's sad, but the reality of it is, if we don't have anything for that particular
And that's why this is
You
important.
lose it. And one's so lost. So we're,
Yeah, we want to increase the graduation rate, but we want to make sure that each child is important and valued, and that we don't lose that child. They need to graduate from high
each
school.
one of them is important.
Yeah.
So it would be helpful to see any kind of connections to PD, if there's going to be PD and trauma-informed practice, because it needs to be beyond just, the four walls of whatever classroom. It has to be work with the whole building. So I'd like to see more there. In terms of kids with IEPs, if they would be eligible for excess cost, where would that lie if we were able to implement that? Would that show up anywhere else in the budget as an offset? Not tonight, but just,
The only
That would be
thing I would
helpful.
caution you on excess cost is that the funding is really undeterminable at this point.
right,
Based on what happened last year. I would really not venture to guess that if you were going to include any more costs in outplaced students, remember the threshold of 80,000, you don't see anything for the first 80,000. And then you see a percentage over and above that, but I really don't have any idea where that's going to come out right now. And I don't think anybody else in the state does, because I haven't seen a significant increase in the amount that the state is putting into the overall fund. Last year was 150 million, and it was woefully short.
okay.
One other thing on my list was the security guards. You know, the high school is, requires security guards. You know, we might not have required them 15 years ago. Our clientele is a little different now. And the kids are different, right? So they are, I don't know, it's, for me, we need somebody who has eyes on the children. We don't need to have a firearm. We need security guards to walk the building, make sure the kids are getting where they're supposed to be. We also need somebody there who's trained when certain situations develop. As you may recall, several years ago, I was assaulted in the high school, thrown to the ground by a student by breaking up a fight. The kid had 50 pounds on him, as far as weight is concerned. You know, we need security guards when things like that happen, because fights happen. It's a reality of people in the population. Cameras in certain blind areas. When the kids know that they're not there, they know where to go when they want to get into trouble, or when they want to do something that they shouldn't be doing. And as good as we think of our children in Seymour are, they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I don't expect the kids to be perfect. But they do make mistakes, and it is helpful if they know that they have extra eyes on them. It makes them think twice before doing something wrong. It helps them practice self-control. But if they know that they're not watched, eyes aren't on them, they'll have a tendency to test the limits, so to speak. We need more people in the building to keep eyes on our kids. Keep them out of trouble. Prevent it. It's not a gotcha, it's the, hey guys, stop. Honestly, staff that we have, we don't have the time to keep our eyes on the entire parts of the building. Every high school in the area has security guards. We're the only one that does not. And there's a reason why.
Jay, you had something?
So, through the chair, when you talked about the tardy officers there, so where would I find that in the budget? In the sense that, where would I see the identification of that? Dr. Carmen said she thought it was still in here, so where would that be?
It would be under a cluster of whatever, I don't know exactly without looking under the codes of what Mr. Bucci has. I know most of the stuff that we had from last year was in this year, trying to roll over and maintain.
So I guess
I don't know,
I would ask that that stuff is delineated out. I think that some of this needs to be, so, for example, Appendix Z doesn't seem to be delineated out, Appendix D doesn't seem to be delineated out. The stipends, so for example, Mr. Lucky, his stipend doesn't seem to be delineated
with the
out.
grades, you're talking about
For the
specific
grants.
breakdown with the
And it's
coaches.
not, so
Okay.
yeah, it's not here, so,
Right.
just because that's part of the full picture.
Right, yeah,
It's
we
here,
can,
some of them are like minimized in the sense that the Appendix D for,
right, we can let you see exactly the cost of each of
and I'm
these
not sure why that
appendices.
was changed, because it's always been delineated out.
with the specific ones. He's just not done that in the breakdown. You can see that in the whatever, but we can specifically break that down, just like I did with you with the individual salaries, but it didn't include the breakdown of the Appendix D. So we can do that. Yeah. And exactly where he's budgeted with that, I'd have to look specifically.
Well, I think all those things that in the last year, or so again, through the chair, we've added some things, some stipends, some,
Right.
so that needs to be shown. It needs to be
Right, so
clear.
you see, I agree with you, yeah, we'll do that, we'll send that and update it, okay?
So, I've also taken all of the things that the different administrators have said, and I think you were kind of doing the same thing, but on the actual budget. So if I was to send you, Sal, things like social worker, a teacher, language art consultant, secretary, all of the different items, could we get a dollar amount associated with those?
Yeah, you could get an estimated dollar
Yeah, I
amount.
mean, what's in this budget, the only additions in the budget were the ones that were put in for the 3 building subs, the alternative education,
Teacher.
as well as the security officer.
Right, because I
It's very
think,
easy to quantify other items if you want me to give you a separate line item of what the all-in cost would be. The way we set this up, for instance, is when you look at that alternative education addition, it includes the salaries and the benefits and the taxes and everything, so that there aren't components hidden in other places.
This sheet right here, we just want these 2 columns filled out.
yeah, pretty much.
What page is that, Mr.
It's on the needs
Initial
assessment that we
administrative
did,
budget
for
request.
the summary that we fixed that I had.
It doesn't include the
BCBA.
special ed portion of it, but otherwise it's pretty comprehensive.
So, I think this is, through the chair, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think this was a great exercise, and I really appreciate the administrators taking the time and rest of the report. I think we just, next year, need to do it maybe a month earlier,
Yeah.
and do this part before we get the additional here, because I think it's gonna be hard now to be able to merge the two. I mean, I think that's gonna be our test. It looks like we're gonna have to come back to the table here before we can really get anything accomplished, because we need to see the numbers, we need to see everything.
Right.
That's my opinion, but I think if you could take the same chart and add a couple of those other things, so for example, if we were to go back to the half, I don't see it here, but the half 0.5 administrator, was anybody,
Yeah,
we have a list there, Mr. Champagne, of anything else that was not on this list that was?
Right, you want to
Yeah,
see
there's
the
a couple
exact
things. Yeah,
salaries and so forth, what the estimated cost would be. And this, was from my original PowerPoint where I just summed up some of the requests from the narratives of what they were requesting. I think that's very good. I think also in showing the Appendix D and just looking at the breakdown of the cost of all the stipend, it's not just stipend positions, but specifically coaching positions and all of the cost and,
Quite,
What?
Dr. Compton, quite
Okay.
frankly, this is, to me, in this whole packet, this is the most useful piece of paper, and it's not fleshed out. If it
Yeah.
were fleshed out, this would be the best tool we had in this entire packet,
Right.
in my opinion.
Because I think what would benefit us, and I can't direct you to do anything, so I'm hoping we can do this.
I'll direct,
But
yeah,
I
we'll-
think it
we'll
would be
figure it
really
out.
helpful if we saw this year's budget move forward a year. Right, everything that's in that budget this year for next year, and give us the costs of what we think,
I'm confused.
with
I'm not,
no changes. We need to see a budget with no changes. Obviously, the contractual increases,
what you
your
have.
your
here,
estimates.
What you have, except for the 3 items that
Right.
were added, was last year's, is this year's budget with no staffing changes, just contractual increases, and estimated increases in non-educational areas.
Yep.
So the original budget that I had put together back in December, beginning of December for Dr. I said, here's a budget that basically shows the status quo with just contractual increases, estimated increases in employee health benefits, the 1% upcharge in the Seymour's rate, transportation increases and things like that. And then she layered in
No,
those
no,
three
no,
specific.
no, I
I'm just trying
understand
to
the,
tell you what
no,
we
I
have.
get it.
Yep.
But if we could remove the alternate ed, security guard, the permanent building subs
You're at 3.9.
from this, and then same look, but without those things, and then maybe below, give us an idea of
you want on
what
that
that
sheet.
would
Each
be.
piece.
Yeah,
Because quite frankly, at the end of the day, Dr. Compton's budget that she proposes to us is very valuable to us and useful, but her adding items is
I didn't
good
put that.
information, but it's not useful necessarily, because we are the only ones that are gonna present a budget at the end of this.
Right, because it's looking like we're gonna need to come back next Monday, and Monday is the 29th, and that'll give us a couple days. And we could look at, and just say, where do we feel there's value? Do we want the security guards? Do we want another teacher? Do we want this or that? And, you know,
I think in prioritizing after all of this, you
maybe
want to
have
go
you
back.
prioritize
You want to
where-
reflect, you really want to see, where are we? We know where we are, we're at a 4%, which was the December 11th thing that we prepared with straight, nothing added. The 4.5 was with the additional alternative teacher, the 3 permanent subs, and also the unarmed security officer, I think 22,000. So if we go down all this list and give you that stuff to prioritize.
Yeah,
or even how you prioritize.
my suggestion was, if we had this at the beginning of the month, for example, and we had done the work with all the administrators to put their wish list together, and then we put a dollar figure to every item on the wish list. Let's say the wish list is 15 items total. Every one of us, including Dr. Compton, could then go through and prioritize it after we hear from the administrators, which probably should be the first thing that happens. And then we can all start at a point where we agree based on a simple vote that these 5 things are clearly the most important to us.
Most important.
Now we can start to figure out, okay, that's gonna cost $400,000. Are we willing to present a budget that's $400,000 above what we started talking about
Right.
here?
And
So
I
that,
think-
that would be to me, the most useful way for us to approach this process in the future.
Yeah, and I think what was also good, it's like Jay said, it'd be nice, Dr. Gong, if we could start this a month ago. You know, basically, if we really could have honed in this in December. The other situation is, like when we had it on the 11th, the principals couldn't be here. They'd had a dinner thing they'd scheduled forever. But I think tonight, it's at least everybody can all hear the needs and their wishes. I sometimes call it the Disney list, because when you prioritize everything, you can't give everything, but you can prioritize what you feel is most important, and that everybody's heard. I have a little, different philosophy on some things in regards about, we want to have a leveling. We don't want to see one school kind of getting it all, or another school and forgetting, we've got 4, but what are the most important priorities?
That's
What's
why we're
best
gonna
for
give you
kids?
the hard task of prioritizing. Most important, at least. And I think with having a list of, like Jay said, all of the appendix positions, all
If I
the
could
stipend
comment on that,
positions.
okay. First of all, the stipend for Mr. Lucky is supposed to be self-funded. And
Right,
in
it
fact,
is.
this year it is being self-funded because he's generated enough grants with administrative lines to be able to essentially pay his full
Oh,
stipend.
it paid for itself in above way.
The appendix
Sorry,
D,
may I, through the
Yeah,
chair?
that's just extra.
But I think it still needs to be placed as a holder, because what if next year it's not self-funded? Then what happens?
then we don't really need him doing grants for us. I mean,
But that's not the.
Yeah, but we do
I
need to
understand what you're
reflect
saying.
what.
The idea-
We sign,
yeah, I understand your point.
but that,
But to put $10,000
But it's not-
into the budget for a position, for some, I don't like building budgets where I'm just throwing in a 10 because I think it might be, I mean, yes, we have all kinds of situations where we have unexpected costs, but
But with all due
Well, our
respect,
experience has been so far with Mr. Lucky has been just terrific in terms of his ability to generate grants and to generate funds that will enable us to pay the cost of him pursuing these grants.
Well, they all know that and they support
But-
that. They're
but-
so
So
do
proud
we
of
have
that.
a
They just
page?
want to see it in an
Right.
expenditure.
Yeah, we should have a page of those grants.
Yeah.
And how would we, and with all due respect, until you just said that, how would we know that? How do we know that his money for this year has been self-funded?
Well, we
Because
can show you
didn't know that.
the grants when he did
But
did
that's
like
not
an
in here.
overview
But
at
when
one
we
of the
first
meetings.
hired the position, we said a percentage over and above would, takes care of his salary. And we've seen several times where there's been items that he's gotten through grants. I mean,
Yes.
one of them was fairly significant.
Well, like even
Yeah.
this math grant, there was like
But how is it
15%.
identified in here?
Yeah.
For the average taxpayer to
it's-
identify?
It's not, and I
And
think,
that's not, to me, that is not.
You're not going to get,
Yeah.
you're gonna see a line item that says $10,000. Nobody's going
But I'm
to
talking about
dive
the
in
grant.
deeper than us
right.
at what that nobody's going to care. That 10,000 got you 750.
No, but I'm
But
not talking about.
typically, there is a page of income, sort of funds coming in.
Right.
So that should be the grants received.
Because I think it's important to note that if we did get these grants of 750,000, then we wouldn't have X, Y, and Z.
It is important, and
And it's
also
not
in
identified.
that one large grant, he was able to even cover administrative costs, or a big percentage out of it. He got the largest grant in Connecticut based upon, it was 15% just administrative costs, like $25,000 that hasn't even been utilized yet. I mean, just going actually back for the district. So I think that's, and he gave a nice updated report, and he can sure show a spreadsheet of all the grants and what he's been able to do with it.
Maybe that information
And that'd
goes
be
into
wonderful to
your
put in this.
presentation.
It's a showcase, yeah, that's what we'll do. And then getting back at all those Appendix D positions and just seeing what those additional costs. He hasn't
Well,
lumped in
those-
all that.
Those positions, my experience with the board has been that you always are doing trade-offs on Appendix D. So it seems like I can give you the list of all of the people who are receiving appendix non-sport and sport
Yeah, we'll put
stipends
that
this
into
year.
the budget,
But
yeah.
for the most part, it's a constant. And we pay those out when there's a split stipend, or if you wanted to add this particular one, usually you will take away another one. So I'm happy to give you the schedule. I thought it was superfluous only because it really is somewhat flat, but that was a judgment call I made, and if you would like the list, I'm happy to provide you I have the list.
Yeah, we'll
on
add
both
it into
sides.
the budget as an
I can give
addendum.
you that complete
as
list
an
of every
addendum.
appendix D position in the district, and in most cases, the positions are all filled, or some other position was filled instead.
There's one other thing, if you can do it in 3 to 4 minutes, will you explain that they wanted analysis about the cost of substitute
Oh,
teachers?
yes, I did do
So,
my
let's-
homework on that.
Okay,
Oh,
can
great.
we do a quick summary in 5
It's gonna
minutes
be a
or
very
less?
quick- Here's your quick summary.
Okay, wait, 5 minutes or less,
It would
and
be
what we
3
really
minutes.
wanna, yeah, just a second, Mr. Bucci. Just in regards with this is, when you hear the amount of monies, I think you'll be very pleased to know that definitely, it's a no-brainer about having permanent subs in these buildings. The main thing is should the amount be? I think the minimum wage and what you had said, Stefan, makes a whole lot of sense. I saw even in a place like Lexington, Massachusetts, they're paying minimum wage, basically, it's basically $170 a day. So, okay, Mr. Bucci.
Okay, so I went back and actually looked at two components that did not relate to people who are paid at the substitute teacher rate for a full day, $105, $115. Right now, we're filling positions with existing teachers. That was the first question that came up. For the 4 months, and largely, most of this was in the last 2 months, we've spent $61,000 paying teachers to fulfill classes. They fulfilled 1,436 classes, which means basically a class is an hour. When the teacher subs for a class, they get paid for the hour.
You said 2 months?
No, for the entire 4 months.
4 months, 4 months.
But it spiked in November and December, which, it seems like in September and October, everybody shows up, and then November and December, the vacancies begin to increase significantly. It was out of that 61,000, almost 25,000 of it was in December. So at the $42.45 an hour, it was about 1,436 classes. Kathy and I spent some time looking through Frontline just to get a sense of whether our numbers were making sense based on the daily vacancies, et cetera. This all kind of added up. The second piece we spent money on was we now are bringing substitutes in from Delta T, which is where we've been getting a lot of our paras. They charge $195 a day for a 6.5-hour day, $30 essentially an hour. So that was another 14,000, another 75 classes, so roughly 1,500 classes needed to be covered in the 4-month period. And for that, we spent approximately $75,000. So if you were going to go to a permanent rate,
Excuse me.
Chief, go ahead.
Through the chair. Is that 75 in addition to the 61? Or
Yes.
So
Yes.
75 plus 61,
Plus 61 what?
because you said 61,000.
Yeah, no,
then
it's not
75.
75, it's,
Well, that's fine.
it's 15,000 for 75 hours of Delta T, and it's 61,000 for 1,500 hours of our teachers.
Our
So it's
teachers.
about 75 total.
It's 75 total,
In 4 months.
$75,000 total dollars for the 4-month period for 1,500 classes.
And would you say that that's split fairly evenly across the 4 schools?
I would say more of it's in the elementary schools. See, here's the thing, the high school, and
Well, they're
I
able to
tried to get
cover
educated
with their
myself on this,
schedules, they
because see,
can fill in.
the elementary schools, the children basically are in a homeroom. They're in a room, okay, so they have maybe an hour and a half out of their 6.5-hour day where they have lunch and then they have
Recess.
whatever time they have that is essentially in the room. The high school students are essentially free, except when they're required to be in one of their classes. So they're not sitting in a homeroom where they need to be attended to, they're off doing whatever they're doing. My understanding is the middle school is a little bit of a hybrid, although I didn't really get a straight answer yet on that, but my understanding is that really the focus, a lot of it is on the elementary school, because those students come in, go into a classroom, and they're in that classroom for the good part of the day. They need to be covered throughout the day, so that,
Just so we're clear on this money, just totally clear. The $75,000, that is just money that we're paying existing teachers and the
Delta
temp
T.
agency? That's not normal substitutes, making
No.
the 105 to 115?
there was another, I didn't quite add it all up, but there's probably another $25,000, $30,000 that we
So
paid.
we're spending about 3 times as much
Oh, easily,
to cover
yes,
than we are on normal subs.
yes, we are.
To creatively cover for them.
Yes, we are. We are spending at least 3 times as much. Just on the teacher portion, for that $24,000 that we spent in the month of December alone, if we had had 3 permanent building subs, we would have spent around 8 or 9,000 right there. So the spread is significant in that even if you had idle time with permanent building subs, which from the numbers I'm seeing, I don't see how that's possible, you'd still spend less money.
So if you're trending 75 over 4 months, let's assume we have 10 months, so you're looking at over $200,000.
And I would, yeah, and my understanding,
But what I'm getting at is there's $200,000 and the building subs are $25,000 apiece.
25,000 for the, well, it depends, if you go to $170 an hour, it's still only 30,000, okay? I mean, it's not that jump, it's 182 days, $170, it's $30,000 a year. If maybe one of them takes single coverage or whatever on insurance, that's $13,000 on top of that, but that's still not going to push you to the point where you're paying for the outside, for that outside. And the second thing is, I recall hearing Mrs. Reed say that she thought it was very important to have consistency in having permanent building subs that children could identify with. It's clearly something she would.
Oh, there's obvious benefits. We're just looking for money, straight money right now.
Well, money's already being spent.
Through the chair then, so what I'm hearing, it seems to me, is enough justification for us to say, we should in January post for building subs. That's what I'm hearing, and we could beat around the bush about that, but that's, I mean, what are we waiting for?
We really would be a lot better off to.
Spending the money either way.
Right, so, what do we have to do to get that done? Let's put on the,
Yeah.
I mean, is it possible to put
February,
on
we
the
need to
agenda for
create.
February and start
Yep, we need to
posting
create
them? Or
them
can we add
and-
it today?
And I hope that anybody that's listening at home would be interested in applying
Sure.
either for a daily sub or for those permanent sub
Add it
positions.
today, this special meeting.
There's also, I'm sure we have a sub-pool list currently.
Yes.
I'm sure it's dwindling,
Yeah.
but maybe we can also put on the February agenda.
Agenda.
The rate, of that pay, and then maybe blast them somehow,
Yeah,
let
and
them know,
try
hey,
to-
guess what, come on back to
try to
Seymour.
get it
Jay's,
out
Jay's
there.
spot on. This is not something that needs to wait till the next budget.
No,
This
it
is
needs
not
to
gonna
roll
affect the
now
budget.
because I wanted you to know the monetary expense, and he calculated it, and he did it just about less than 5 minutes, okay?
All right, so we,
I think we did it in 5 minutes, didn't we?
we,
Yep.
You
Can I
did
make
well.
one other
You did.
request for next time? Sure. So one other piece of information, we know, I've heard mention of at least one retirement. If there are any other projected retirements that may net us some savings in terms of people being hired at a lower step, that would be helpful, just to
I
consider.
don't think at this time there'll be any more faculty retirements. We've only had the 3 secretarial positions in regards of whatever as far as retirements.
But through the chair, to Mr. Burton's point, in here is not identified necessarily the one science retirement. The other position up at the high school, it says it's in the budget at top step, which is somewhat unusual for us. We usually go to the lower end when we put it in the projection and we hold it. And here, for example, it says open and it says master's, whatever, plus 14. It's like 105,000, and that is not necessarily true as to what we normally do.
It's
So
not
that's
necessarily
reflected.
true, but
can
my
vary.
experience in being just the processor of data is with the teacher shortage and with your ability to try to identify a suitable candidate, one of the reasons that I kind of dropped this whole thing of the conversation about early incentive retirement plans being endorsed by the board is you don't necessarily get a halving of the step. If you're trying to identify, like for instance, the
We had a
school
math
psychologist, if you could find one, you're more likely going to be close to the top step, and that's just a layman's point of view of processing the data from what I'm seeing. So I don't like to go out and say pie in the sky, gee, you could bring in a 25, 30-year-old person, bring them in on step 4, because if they're coming into your district, they want credit for time served in another district. So I don't know how to do that
But
properly.
that's a concerning point to me, though, that we have now changed our philosophy, because we have not necessarily, that to me is a vision and philosophy of this board that has been changed on discussion.
Not in all cases.
But
not in
there
all
are a
cases.
couple evidences that I saw
Yeah,
in here.
yeah, and
And
there
it's
are.
concerning, because that's not something that we've been doing. We've been, very conservative in bringing people on board, and then now it seems like we're going backwards from that.
I
I'm not
also
sure
think
where
that you're
comes.
having to deal, Jay, with the fact that we are in a real serious teacher shortage right now.
And I understand that, but that's a conversation, though, that we should be,
Yeah.
again, aware of, and while we're putting this budget together.
I agree with your point from like a philosophical standpoint. However, I foresee more issues being created if we budget every open position at the lowest level than if we budget at the highest, and then we may get some room on the back end, as opposed to now we're $40,000 over in these 4 positions. That's a significant challenge as opposed to being $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 under.
Right, it used to be, and I can go back and show, before
And
COVID.
just with the shortage, I
Right,
mentioned.
before COVID,
Tough.
when one would retire, then basically they would look for a brand-new teacher, almost
And like
zero
I shared with you
experience.
the other day, I read something, 1975, a third of all college students were in
Right.
education, now it's under 5%.
Right, and like Jay said, it basically, you were telling the superintendent, the associate superintendent, the principals, you want to bring in somebody not at the bottom step. But now it's such a dilemma in trying to get teachers, and especially, for example, the one math teacher we're very lucky to get that came to the middle school in the fall, she was high step. I mean, it just varies. You can't always, and I know that's what Jay was saying, it used to be the philosophy, okay, they've been blessed, they've retired, moved on, then we grow somebody else at the lowest step. But now, since after COVID and the teacher shortage, we don't have that scenario anymore.
And actually, I think we also have to be cautious, though. We can't just think that everybody's gonna come walking in here, oh, well, I'm gonna be at top step, because then you're gonna start having a lot of movement of, not necessarily candidates you want either.
That's exactly
'Cause they
right.
think, oh, well, you know what, we're gonna walk into see where we're gonna
Yeah.
get top step, and hey, I'm gonna leave in 2 years.
Well, you would have some people, sometimes that you have at least 47% right now that are top step. And you would have people that if they could get in here, they would come to Seymour because they pay so much more than a certain school district.
And
Absolutely.
we have to trust the superintendent to
Yes,
do the
and,
hiring.
and the
That is your
personnel
role.
and
That
the
is not
whatever,
our
that
role.
we're not gonna let them flood the market
And, you
here
know,
and
one-
not get
one
the
thing-
best
One thing Dr.
candidates. But
Compton
some-
and I discussed at one point was last year, after all the hard work that went into hiring 3, 4 teachers, they wound up not coming here after all and didn't start the year here. They actually went through the whole process of being onboarded and then apparently found jobs in other districts and didn't come here. Now, I can't specifically tell you what the step and the lane was, but they were younger teachers who were on the move and looking for the best place to maybe spend some time in their career, and we lost 3 of them.
Well, one was a school psychologist because they shopped around and they got closer to their home, they got a higher salary, and they got right near their neighborhood.
Yeah, all right, I see everybody packing up. I want to just say 2 things. One, I wish people were more concerned with the budget than they are with the next head coach of football. That's just something I wanted to throw out there. It seems like everybody's more concerned with that. And then 2, if, you said you can't make Monday?
I cannot.
So if everybody can send me by the end of the day tomorrow, and I'll reach out to Ms. Harmeling and Mr. Stramello.
I'd like to have all 9 of you here.
Yeah, so if you could just send me a schedule from today, tomorrow through the 31st, just shoot me a text, and then we can figure out what day works for everybody. And with that, it's time to go.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Stefan, second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Who, it was?
1, 2.